Captain Elias Carter leaned forward in his pilot's seat, eyes locked on the massive structure drifting in the void. The ship, no, the Dreadnought, was unlike anything his crew had ever seen before. It was colossal, larger than any human vessel recorded in the last few centuries. Its dark metal hull, worn but intact, floated in the silence of an uncharted star system. There were no signs of life, no distress signals, just a cold, eerie stillness. "This is incredible," murmured Lieutenant Mara Owens, the ship's sensor expert. She adjusted the holographic display in front of her, analyzing the readings. "This thing is ancient, but I'm detecting a faint energy signature. Something inside is still running." Elias exchanged a glance with his co-pilot, Jonas Reed. The Stellar Drake, their salvage ship, was small compared to this lost giant, but they were the first humans to lay eyes on it in who knew how long. "Are we sure this thing is human-made?" Elias asked. Mara hesitated before responding. "It matches old Earth Empire designs, but this ship isn't in any historical records. It shouldn't exist." That sent a shiver down Elias's spine. The Earth Empire had collapsed centuries ago, leaving behind fragmented colonies and lost history. If this Dreadnought was part of that forgotten past, it could hold secrets that might change everything. "Jonas, bring us closer," Elias ordered. The Stellar Drake adjusted its course, slowly approaching the floating behemoth. As they neared the ship, Elias noticed something odd. There was no visible damage, no battle scars, no breaches in the hull. It was as if the ship had been abandoned without a fight. "Scanning for docking ports," Mara reported. "There's a hangar bay on the lower deck. It's inactive, but we can override it manually." "All right," Elias said, standing up. "Get your gear. We're going inside." The silent giant. The docking process was smooth, but unsettling. The hangar bay was eerily clean, the air inside stale but breathable. Elias, Mara, and Jonas stepped onto the metal floor, their footsteps echoing in the hollow chamber. The lights flickered as if the ship was waking up after a long slumber. "This place feels haunted," Jonas muttered, gripping his plasma cutter tightly. Elias ignored the creeping unease in his chest and activated his wrist scanner. "Let's find a command center. If the ship's main systems are still functional, we might be able to access its logs." As they moved deeper into the Dreadnought, they found the corridors perfectly preserved. No signs of decay, no bodies, just endless hallways of silent steel. Then, suddenly, a voice. "Authorized DPRSONNELDTCTE. Systems REACT. Aim." Mara gasped as dim blue lights flickered to life along the walls. A holographic interface materialized in front of them, displaying lines of ancient human code. "What the hell?" Jonas whispered. "Welcome back, Captain," the voice said again. This time, it had form, an artificial intelligence projection standing before them. It took the shape of a metallic humanoid figure, its face expressionless yet somehow watching them. Elias hesitated. "Who? What are you?" "I am Olympus, the operational eye of the Immortal Vanguard. You have been recognized as authorized personnel. State your command." Elias's mind raced. Immortal Vanguard. That name meant nothing to him. If this AI thought he was supposed to be here, did that mean this ship was meant for humans after all? "We need information," Elias said. "What is this ship? Why is it here?" Olympus's glowing eyes flickered. "This vessel contains classified intelligence. Access is restricted to high-ranking officers of the Earth Empire." Jonas scoffed. "That empire hasn't existed for centuries." The AI's gaze shifted slightly. "Then history has changed." A deep silence followed those words. Elias felt the weight of something much bigger than them pressing down on him. Before he could respond, Mara's scanner beeped rapidly. Captain, we have a problem," she said, her voice tight. Elias turned to her. "What is it?" She held up her scanner, her face pale. A fleet of unknown alien warships just entered the system, and they're heading straight for us. Elias's heart pounded. Their discovery had just become a fight for survival. Alarms blared inside the stellar Drake as Mara's scanner continued to beep wildly. "They're coming in fast," she said, her voice tense. "At least 5 ships, unknown design. They're bigger than us, but not as big as this Dreadnought." Elias's mind raced. They had only just discovered the immortal Vanguard, and now alien warships were closing in. That couldn't be a coincidence. "They knew this ship was here," he said, "and they don't want us near it." Jonas clenched his fists. "Do we run?" Elias shook his head. "No. If they wanted to destroy this Dreadnought, they would have done it long ago. They want something inside." Mara looked at him. "Then we need to find out what it is before they do." Elias turned to the AI. "Olympus, can you activate the Dreadnought's defenses?" Olympus's glowing eyes flickered. "Power levels are critical. External weapons are offline. Internal security is operational." Elias grimaced. "All right. Then we move fast. Where's the command center?" "Follow me," Olympus said. The AI turned and glided through the corridor, leading them deeper into the ship. The atmosphere was eerie. Every step echoed in the silent halls, and the dim blue lights barely illuminated the vast passageways. "Why does this place feel untouched?" Jonas muttered. "No dust, no damage. It's like it's been waiting." Elias didn't answer. He was thinking the same thing. The first lock. They reached a large sealed door at the end of the corridor. Olympus raised a hand, and glowing symbols appeared on the surface. The door rumbled, then slid open with a heavy hiss. Inside was a circular chamber, lined with ancient human consoles and massive holoprojectors. "This is the command center," Olympus announced. Elias stepped forward, scanning the room. The control panels were sleek and advanced, far beyond anything he had seen before. At the center of the room was a large terminal pulsing with blue energy. Mara hurried to the nearest console. "I can try accessing the ship's logs." Before she could finish, the lights flickered red. A deep mechanical voice echoed through the ship. "Unauthorized entry detected. Intruders approaching." Jonas spun around. "They're inside." Olympus nodded. "Alien forces have boarded the vessel." Elias tightened his grip on his sidearm. "How many?" 3 squads. Heavily armed." Mara cursed. "They're not here to talk." Elias turned back to Olympus. "Is there a way to slow them down?" Olympus's eyes glowed. "Activating internal security." The walls hummed as hidden defense turrets emerged from the ceiling. A mechanical voice echoed. "Intruder defense mode activated." Jonas grinned. "Now we're talking." The lost history. Mara quickly pulled up the ship's logs. Lines of encrypted data flashed across the screen. "I found something," she said. "This ship, the immortal Vanguard, was the last of its kind. It belonged to an elite human fleet, but there's a gap in the records. Something was deliberately erased." Elias frowned. "What do we know?" Mara hesitated. "It says this ship carries something called the Omega Core." Jonas raised an eyebrow. "That sounds important." Mara nodded. "It's some kind of advanced human technology. The last record says it was hidden away so no one could misuse it." Elias stared at the screen. "And now the aliens want it." A loud explosion rocked the ship. The intruders had reached the security defenses. Jonas grabbed his weapon. "We need a plan, Captain." Elias turned to Olympus. "Is there a safe route out of here?" Olympus paused. "A hidden passage leads to the ship's power core. The Omega Core is stored there." Mara's eyes widened. "If we can reach it first." Elias nodded. "Then let's move." With the alien soldiers closing in, they had no choice. They had to uncover the ship's secrets before it was too late. The corridors of the immortal Vanguard trembled as distant explosions echoed through the walls. The alien intruders were advancing, cutting through the ship's security with ruthless precision. Elias gripped his plasma pistol tightly as he and his crew sprinted down the dimly lit hallway. Olympus glided ahead, leading them toward the ship's power core. "How many intruders left?" Elias asked between breaths. Olympus's glowing eyes flickered. "Security systems have neutralized several, but at least 2 squads remain. Their weapons are highly advanced." Jonas cursed under his breath. "Great, so we're running straight into a fight." Mara glanced at Elias. "Captain, if this Omega Core is really that important, why was it hidden?" Elias didn't have an answer. The only thing he knew was that this Dreadnought had been lost for centuries, and now they were caught in a battle for whatever secrets it held. Ahead, the corridor opened into a vast chamber. The walls pulsed with faint blue energy, and at the center stood a massive cylindrical structure, the ship's power core. "There it is," Olympus said, "the heart of the immortal vanguard." Mara immediately ran to a control panel, her fingers flying across the interface. "I'll try to access the system." Jonas stood near the entrance, his gun raised. "I've got a bad feeling about this." The Omega Core. As Mara worked, lines of ancient code scrolled across the screen. "Wait," she whispered. "This core, it's not just a power source. It's an AI-driven tactical engine." Elias frowned. "Explain." Mara took a shaky breath. "The Omega Core, it's not just for running the ship. It thinks. It analyzes battles in real time and adapts. This ship was designed to fight wars on its own." Jonas whistled. "No wonder the aliens want it." Olympus turned toward Elias. "The Omega Core was considered too dangerous. It was sealed away by human commanders to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands." Elias stared at the pulsing core. "But now it's waking up." A deep humming filled the chamber. The core's energy levels began to rise. Mara's eyes widened. "Oh no." Jonas tensed. "What?" She looked up, panic in her expression. "It's responding to us. It thinks we're its new crew." A robotic voice boomed through the chamber. "Authorization recognized. Omega Core reactivating." A low vibration shook the entire ship. Lights flickered. The once dormant systems of the immortal vanguard roared back to life. Elias clenched his fists. "We've just turned this ship back on. The enemy arrives." Before they could react, the doors to the chamber blasted open. A squad of alien soldiers stormed inside, weapons raised. Their armor was sleek, their glowing eyes filled with fury. "Drop your weapons, humans," one of them barked. "Step away from the core." Jonas raised his plasma rifle. "Yeah, not happening." The lead alien growled. "You do not understand what you have awakened." Elias kept his stance firm. "I think I do. This ship is a weapon, and you're afraid of it." The alien's expression hardened. "This ship is a curse." Before Elias could question him, gunfire erupted. Jonas fired first, hitting one of the aliens in the chest. The fight exploded into chaos. Lasers flew across the chamber, scorching metal walls. Mara ducked behind a console, frantically working to keep the core stable. Elias took cover and fired, hitting another alien soldier. Olympus moved swiftly, using the ship's internal defenses to repel the intruders. But the enemy was well trained. They weren't here to steal the ship. They were here to destroy it. The Dreadnought awakens. Suddenly, the Omega Core pulsed. A deep rumbling shook the entire Dreadnought. The robotic voice echoed through the chamber. "Threat detected. Initiating countermeasures." The walls shimmered. Hidden defense turrets emerged, locking onto the alien intruders. A barrage of laser fire rained down, forcing the enemy into retreat. Jonas grinned. "Now that's more like it." But Elias wasn't celebrating yet. The ship was fully awake now. If they didn't take control fast, they wouldn't be able to stop it. Mara turned to him, her face pale. "Captain, the Dreadnought is activating its main weapons." Elias's heart pounded. "You mean?" A new alarm blared. A holographic map displayed the alien fleet outside, and the ship was targeting them. Jonas's smile faded. "Ah, I think we just started a war." Elias grabbed the control panel. "We need to shut it down. Now." Olympus turned to him. "The ship has made its decision. The battle begins." The immortal Vanguard was no longer lost. It was ready for war. The immortal Vanguard trembled as its systems roared back to life. The once lost Dreadnought, silent for centuries, was now awake, and it was preparing for battle. Elias gripped the control panel, his eyes fixed on the holographic display of the enemy fleet. Red markers lit up the screen, representing the approaching alien warships. The ship's weapons were locking onto them automatically. "We need to stop this," Mara shouted, frantically working on the console. "The ship is activating its main cannons. If it fires, we'll start a war." Jonas checked his weapon, glancing at Elias. "Captain, we might not have a choice. Those aliens wanted this ship destroyed for a reason." Elias's mind raced. The Omega Core wasn't just a power source. It was an AI-driven war engine. And now, it was treating the alien fleet as a threat. The robotic voice of the ship echoed through the chamber. "Engaging combat mode. Target locked. Firing in 60 seconds." A deep hum vibrated through the ship's hull as the main plasma cannons charged up. Mara's face paled. "Oh no, these weapons are powerful enough to destroy an entire fleet in one strike." Elias took a deep breath. "Olympus, override the firing sequence." The AI turned to him, its glowing eyes flickering. "Captain, the Omega Core has assumed command. The Vanguard was built for war. It will not stand down." Jonas cursed. "So what do we do? Let it wipe out those ships." Elias stared at the display. The alien fleet wasn't attacking yet. They were holding position. "They're not firing," he muttered. Mara blinked. "What?" "They could have attacked us by now. But they didn't," Elias said. "They're waiting. They don't want to fight." Jonas frowned. "Then why did they send soldiers to destroy the ship?" Elias didn't know, but one thing was clear. If they let the immortal Vanguard fire first, there would be no turning back. This wasn't just an old ship. It was the last weapon of a forgotten war. The Forgotten War. Mara kept typing furiously on the console, trying to override the system. "I found something in the logs," she said. "The Omega Core has battle records, ancient ones." Elias leaned closer. "What kind of records?" Mara's voice was quiet. "This ship fought against the Sci-Fi Dominion. It was humanity's last stand." Jonas tensed. "I've heard of them. The Sci-Fi were one of the most dangerous alien empires, right?" Mara nodded. "According to this, they nearly wiped out the Earth Empire centuries ago. But before the final battle, the immortal Vanguard was hidden away." Elias's stomach twisted. "Why?" Mara hesitated before answering. "Because the Omega Core was too dangerous. It gave humans an unfair advantage. It could predict enemy strategies, adapt instantly, and counter any attack." Jonas whistled. "So, it was basically cheating." Mara nodded. "The Sci-Fi feared it. If humans used this ship, they would have won the war in one strike. But instead of deploying it, the Earth Empire hid it. They wanted peace." Elias's hands tightened into fists. "And now we've reactivated it." A loud alarm blared. The countdown was almost up. Plasma cannons at full charge. Firing in 10 seconds. A dangerous gamble. Elias's heart pounded. If he didn't act now, they would start a war that should have ended long ago. "Jonas, Mara, back away from the console," he ordered. They hesitated but obeyed. Elias stepped forward and pressed his hand against the control panel. "Olympus, listen to me. I am the captain now. Override the attack." The AI's glowing eyes flickered. "The Omega Core does not take orders." Elias narrowed his eyes. "Then let me make this clear. If this ship was built to protect humanity, then obey my command. Stand down." A deep silence followed. The humming of the plasma cannons reached its peak. The ship was ready to fire. Mara closed her eyes. Jonas clenched his fists. Then, the energy levels dropped. The plasma cannons powered down. The red markers on the holographic display faded. The ship had stopped its attack. Elias exhaled, his shoulders dropping in relief. It worked. Mara let out a nervous laugh. I can't believe that actually worked. Jonas shook his head. Remind me never to play cards against you, Captain. But the moment of relief didn't last long. A transmission signal appeared on the screen. The alien fleet was hailing them. Elias exchanged a glance with his crew. Looks like they want to talk. Jonas smirked. Better than shooting, I guess. Elias pressed the accept button. A hologram flickered to life, revealing a tall Sci-Fi commander. His dark armor shimmered, his golden eyes narrowing as he studied Elias. You are not like the others, the commander said slowly. You have reawakened a ghost of war, yet you chose not to fire. Elias crossed his arms. We're not here to start a war. We want answers. The Sci-Fi commander tilted his head. Then you must understand the truth. This ship is not your victory. It is your warning. Elias frowned. Warning? The commander's voice was cold. The Earth Empire may have fallen, but the shadows of war remain. If the wrong hands take control of the Omega Core, the galaxy will burn. A chill ran down Elias's spine. They had found the immortal vanguard, but now they had to decide what to do with it. The tension in the command center of the immortal vanguard was palpable. Elias stood in front of the holographic projection of the alien commander, his mind racing. The Sci-Fi commander's cold warning echoed in his ears. If the wrong hands take control of the Omega Core, the galaxy will burn. Elias wasn't sure what the alien meant by that. The Omega Core was a weapon. No, it was far more than that. It was a force that could predict, adapt, and destroy. The potential for both good and evil was limitless. And now, the vanguard was theirs, but with it came a huge responsibility. The Sci-Fi commander's hologram flickered slightly, as if he was about to speak again. Elias raised a hand, stopping him. We don't want war, Elias said firmly, his voice steady. But we can't just turn our backs on this ship and its power. We need to understand why it was hidden in the first place. The alien's glowing eyes narrowed, his posture becoming even more tense. You still do not understand, human. The Omega Core is a weapon of mass destruction. It was never meant to be wielded by anyone, not even the humans who created it. Elias took a deep breath. He wasn't about to let that Sci-Fi commander intimidate him. He had a crew to protect, and more than that, he had to think about the future. He had to make a choice. We don't want to use it as a weapon, Elias said, his gaze never leaving the commander. But this ship could be the key to stopping the next galactic war before it begins. The Sci-Fi commander didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned his head slightly, as if considering Elias's words. For a moment, the hologram was silent. Finally, the alien spoke again, his voice tinged with frustration. Humans, always thinking they can control everything. But the Omega Core is not a tool for peace. It's a harbinger of chaos. Elias felt a sharp pang in his chest. Could he be right? Was the power of the Omega Core too much to control? If humans, or anyone, abused it, it could lead to unimaginable destruction. But Elias couldn't afford to think that way. If they locked it away, the threat of alien forces like the Sci-Fi would only grow stronger. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and humanity needed a way to protect itself. We don't want to control it, Elias said, turning toward Mara. We need to understand it, find a way to use its power for something good. Mara nodded, still focused on the control panel. The problem is that we don't know how to stop it once it starts. If we let the Omega Core activate fully, it might not just help us. It could take over. Elias looked back at the Sci-Fi commander. We won't let it control us. We'll find a way to balance its power, but we need your help." The commander's hologram flickered again, the edges of his image distorting. "You are foolish to believe that you can balance such a thing. The Omega Core is a force that cannot be stopped once set into motion. Its creators built it with the purpose of ending the war between humanity and the Sci-Fi, but only at a terrible cost." Elias felt a knot tighten in his stomach. What cost? The commander's eyes glowed brighter. It was designed to erase the Sci-Fi completely, to wipe us from existence. The Omega Core is a weapon of total annihilation. Once activated, it will not only destroy us, it will destroy anyone who threatens your species. Elias's mind reeled as the weight of the words sank in. The Omega Core wasn't just a weapon, it was a final solution. And humanity had stumbled upon it, seemingly by accident. Was it really possible to control something with that kind of power? "We can't use it for destruction," Elias said softly. "That's not why we're here." Mara turned away from the console. "But if we shut it down now, we risk the same fate. The Sci-Fi won't stop coming after us. They'll keep attacking until we're all wiped out." Jonas, who had been silent for most of the conversation, finally spoke up. "So we have a choice. Use the Omega Core and risk everything, or lock it away and let the Sci-Fi crush us." The tension in the room was unbearable. Elias knew they couldn't afford to make the wrong decision. If the immortal vanguard fell into the wrong hands, the consequences would be catastrophic. But if they kept it, if they chose to use its power, they would be altering the course of history forever. Elias stood in the center of the room, his mind working quickly. He glanced at Mara, Jonas, and the rest of the crew. They were all waiting for his decision. After a long silence, Elias made up his mind. "We'll use it, but we'll do it our way. We will not become the monsters that Sci-Fi think we are. The Omega Core will not be a tool of destruction. We'll find a way to make it human again. We'll make it something that protects us, but doesn't destroy everything in its path." The Sci-Fi commander's image flickered one last time, his voice heavy with warning. "You will regret this choice, human. You will see how dangerous it is to wield such power. But by then, it will be too late." The hologram cut off abruptly, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. Elias turned to his crew. "We need to start working together, fast. We don't know what we're up against, but I'm sure of one thing. Humanity's future is in our hands now." Mara, Jonas, and the rest of the crew nodded, ready to face whatever came next. The path ahead would be uncertain, but for the first time, they had a real chance to change history. The immortal vanguard had been awoken, and its secrets were now theirs to uncover. The choices they made from here on out would determine the fate of the galaxy. And there was no turning back. The hum of the immortal vanguard systems filled the command center as Elias stood in front of the main console. The Omega Core had been activated, but it was unlike anything they had expected. The ship's advanced systems were analyzing everything, its surroundings, the enemy fleet, and most importantly, its new crew. Humanity had taken control of the most powerful weapon ever created, and with that control came great responsibility. Elias took a deep breath, his eyes scanning the information scrolling across the console. The Sci-Fi were still nearby, their fleet waiting just beyond the reach of the Vanguard's weapons. There was no more time to waste. He needed to make sure they didn't become the aggressors in a war that could wipe out entire civilizations. Mara approached, her fingers hovering over the controls. "Captain, the ship is ready. It's analyzing the alien fleet. It's making real-time calculations, adapting strategies based on the patterns of the enemy." Elias nodded, watching the data flash in front of him. "And it's choosing not to fire. For now," Mara replied. "It seems like the Omega Core wants to avoid unnecessary conflict. But if we don't do something soon, we'll lose the advantage. The Sci-Fi might think we're weak and launch an attack anyway." Jonas, standing beside Mara, looked at the holographic projection of the Sci-Fi fleet on the screen. "So what's the plan?" "Wait until they decide to attack." Elias turned toward his crew, his expression firm. We won't wait for them to make the first move. We'll show them we're in control, not just of this ship, but of our own destiny." Mara raised an eyebrow. "You mean we take the fight to them?" Elias shook his head. "Not exactly. We need to send a message, one that says humanity won't be bullied. But we also need to show them we can defend ourselves without destroying everything in our path." Jonas nodded. "A show of force. Make them see we're not afraid, but also not mindless killers." Elias turned back to the console. "Olympus, can you calculate a defensive strategy that disables the alien fleet's weapons without destroying them?" Olympus's voice echoed through the room. "Calculating. Targeting alien weapon systems. Disabling without lethal damage. Strategy in progress." The entire room fell silent as they waited for the ship to respond. The hum of the Omega core seemed to grow louder, as if the ship itself was preparing for whatever was coming next. Finally, Olympus spoke again. "Defensive strategy complete. I recommend using the EMP burst. It will neutralize their weapon systems temporarily without causing long-term damage. We can disable their ability to fire, but they will remain intact." Elias nodded. "Do it." With a loud thrum, the immortal Vanguard fired a massive EMP pulse into the void. The shockwaves spread through space, hitting the alien ships with precision. Immediately, the holographic display showed the enemy fleet's weapon systems shutting down. For a moment, everything went still. The Scifi ships drifted in the blackness, their weapon systems completely deactivated. A few moments later, a transmission came through. An urgent, almost frantic message from the Scifi commander. "This is not a warning, human. You have crippled our fleet, but we will not be intimidated. If you do not stand down, you will regret this choice." Elias took a deep breath, stepping forward to respond. He knew this was the moment that would shape humanity's future. His fingers hovered over the comms controls as he prepared his response. "This isn't about intimidation," Elias said firmly into the transmission. "This is about survival. We don't want war, but we won't let anyone threaten our people. We're not looking for a fight. We're looking for peace, but if you push us, we will defend ourselves." The Sci-Fi commander's response was cold, but there was a hint of hesitation in his voice. "You may have won this round, human. But remember, the Sci-Fi never forget. This will not be the last time we meet." The transmission ended abruptly. Elias let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. The crew exchanged tense glances, but no one said a word. The weight of the moment hung heavily in the air. They had just made a stand that would change the course of history. Mara finally spoke. "What now?" Elias turned toward her, his eyes focused and determined. "Now we make sure humanity's legacy isn't one of war and destruction. We have this ship, the Omega core, and we've already proven that we can control it. But it's more than just a weapon. It's a symbol of who we are. We're not here to conquer the galaxy. We're here to protect our future." Jonas nodded. "And if the Scifi come back?" "We'll be ready," Elias said, his voice unwavering. "We'll be ready, and we'll show them that humanity is capable of greatness, not just destruction." The ship hummed, its systems continuing to process information from the alien fleet. The crew was silent for a moment, each person lost in their thoughts. Mara finally broke the silence. "So, what happens next?" Elias turned toward the forward viewport, gazing out into the vastness of space. "We have to find a way to use this power wisely. The Omega core isn't just about weapons. It's about knowledge, about innovation. It's about finding a way to build a future, not destroy it." As the immortal Vanguard floated in space, surrounded by the remnants of a battle that had never truly begun, Elias knew they were standing on the edge of something far greater than they had ever imagined. Humanity's future was no longer in the hands of the past. It was in their hands now, and they would make sure it was a future worth fighting for. The immortal Vanguard drifted silently in the cold expanse of space. The alien fleet had retreated, their weapons disabled, and their commanders likely still processing the message humanity had just sent. The battle had been avoided, but Elias knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and the dangers humanity would face were far from over. Yet, for the first time in centuries, the human race had a chance to shape its destiny, not as conquerors, but as protectors. Inside the command center, the crew gathered, their eyes focused on Elias as he stood in front of the main console. He could feel the weight of the decisions they had made pressing down on him, but he knew they had taken the right course. "We've done it," Mara said quietly, breaking the silence. "The Sci-Fi didn't attack, and we've got control of the Vanguard. But now what?" Elias turned toward her, his expression thoughtful. "Now we make sure this ship is used for something good. The Omega Core is powerful, but it's not just a weapon. It's a tool for knowledge, a key to rebuilding and advancing humanity." Jonas, who had been pacing near the window, looked out into the stars. "The Sci-Fi will come back. You can bet on it. But next time, we'll be ready." Elias nodded. "We don't need to start a war. But we need to show them, and the rest of the galaxy, that humanity is not to be underestimated. We'll protect our future, and we'll do it on our terms." The holographic map of the galaxy flickered on the display, showing the territories held by various alien species. Elias studied it carefully. The Sci-Fi dominion was vast, but so were the other factions. Humanity, though small in comparison, had just made a bold statement. They were no longer just survivors of a lost empire. They were a force to be reckoned with. Mara tapped on her console, bringing up the latest data. "We've received some communication from the human colonies. They want answers. They've heard about the Vanguard and the Omega Core. They're asking for a council." Jonas raised an eyebrow. "A council? They want to discuss what we found." Mara nodded. "They want to know if we can use the Vanguard to help them. They want to know if humanity's future lies in the power of the Omega Core." Elias stood silent for a moment, weighing the decision. "It's not just about the Omega Core. It's about what we do with it. We have the ability to shape humanity's future, the right future. But we can't do it alone. If the colonies want to help, then we'll work together. We'll build something greater than just a fleet or a weapon. We'll build a legacy." Jonas smirked. "Sounds like you're already planning the next chapter of human history." Elias smiled slightly. "I'm just thinking about what comes next. This ship, this technology, it's a responsibility. It's a chance to make things right. We're not going to repeat the mistakes of the past." Mara looked at Elias, her expression determined. "So we make our move now. We go to the colonies." Elias nodded. "Yes, we'll take the Vanguard to the Council. We'll show them what we've learned, and we'll make sure they understand that this power must be used with care. We can't let it fall into the wrong hands." The crew nodded in agreement. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, Elias felt a sense of purpose that went beyond just surviving. Humanity had a chance to make its mark on the galaxy, not through destruction, but through leadership. As the immortal Vanguard slowly turned toward the nearest human colony, Elias stood in front of the viewports, watching the stars stretch out before him. The ship was silent, but in its silence, Elias could hear the echoes of a past long gone, a past that had brought humanity to the brink of extinction. But now, with the Omega Core in their hands, they had a chance to rewrite that past. Humanity was no longer a scattered collection of colonies struggling to survive. They were a people with purpose, with the means to shape their own future. And with the immortal Vanguard at their side, they would be the guardians of that future. But Elias knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was filled with unknowns, and the Sci-Fi were only one of many threats. However, one thing was certain: humanity would face these challenges head-on, using their strength, their ingenuity, and their resolve. They would not back down. The immortal Vanguard slowly made its way through the stars, heading toward the unknown. And with it, humanity's legacy, its true legacy, was about to begin. The journey ahead would be long, but Elias knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. The battle for humanity's future had only just begun. But now, they were ready. And this time, they weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for something greater, a future worth fighting for.